Welcome to the CompTIA Tech Jobs Report for October 2024. Let's jump right in. The recent release of the BLS Jobs Report showed employment across the U.S. economy increased to better than expected 254,000 new positions. The national unemployment rate inched down slightly to 4.1%. For the tech perspective, let's turn to CompTIA's Chief Research Officer, Tim Herbert. Hi, Tim.
Hi, Andrea.
So, Tim, what should we know about this month's report?
After a bumpy few months, I am pleased to report a very good report. In fact, this is the strongest report that we have seen all year. Across the 4 key metrics that CompTIA tracks, all 4 were in the positive. And the last time that happened was way back in March. And it is somewhat rare. It doesn't happen all that often. So certainly a notable bit of good news for us. Starting with tech industry employment. And these are workers employed in all types of positions by tech companies. That increased almost 9,000 net new positions. And I would say the key takeaway, much of the growth was driven by tech services and cloud infrastructure. So there's been nonstop talk about AI, and this is a good reminder of just how important infrastructure is. AI requires a lot of data, a lot of computing resources, and that all resides on infrastructure. And I will mention this as well, with a few of the recent tragic climate events, it has become even more critical than ever to have redundancy in our systems. So when there is an outage in one area, companies have the opportunity to shift their cloud, whether it's storage or applications, to another region that is not affected. So it has become incredibly important to make sure we keep building the base of data center technicians, cloud engineers, network architects, and all of the other critical roles that maintain our country's infrastructure from a technology standpoint. The second metric is tech occupation employment across the economy. So these are positions, tech positions in every single sector of the economy. And this increased by a significant 118,000 new positions. And of course, our standard caveat applies that there is more variance and volatility in the monthly occupation data, and that's just a function of how the Bureau of Labor Statistics tallies that data. So we never want to read too much into it, but that is a fairly notable, and it's the second largest increase this year. And it usually moves hand in hand that when we have an increase in tech occupation, we're going to see a decrease in the tech unemployment rate, meaning that there are fewer workers sitting on the sidelines. And it also means that it is a tightening labor market for tech talent. And then the last metric is this is our forward-looking component. And we measure this via tech job postings. So think of this as employers, they have an opening because they're growing. Perhaps they have to backfill for someone who retired. And they're going to start the recruiting process. This month, we did see another increase, and for net new tech job postings, we're at 225,000. So as you can see, we did have a kind of a dip, still coming off the record highs of 2022, but it has been a steady increase for much of this year. Year to date, we're at about 1.8 million employer job postings, and this is the count of new, rather than the count of active. Which simply means that an employer, they were not able to fill the position in that month, so it rolls over to the next month. So all in all, 4 solid metrics, and it's a great way to start Q4.
Well, it's certainly great to hear that tech hiring is ramping up. Given this encouraging news, what should job seekers and employers be aware of?
The data provides a really nice big picture snapshot of the state of tech hiring. But as we have discussed many times, there's a lot of nuance in the data, and certain points are sometimes overlooked. So I do want to touch on 4 misperceptions. And this affects both how job seekers or career changers should be thinking about entering tech, but it also is something that employers should keep in mind as well in terms of how they're recruiting, how they're developing their talent internally. So perception number one is working in tech means working primarily for a big tech company. And when we say big tech, these are the household names that we all know, the Microsofts, the Googles, the Apples, Cisco, Salesforce, and the list goes on and on. And undoubtedly, they employ a lot of workers. They're drivers of innovation. They're some of the most prominent companies in the world. But tech is so expansive that they represent a relatively small share of total employment. So there are employers of all types across every sector, as well as employers of all sizes. Tech now underpins just about every business function. So a mid-sized business in manufacturing or insurance or a small law firm, their tech needs are just as critical as a big company, and they employ a lot of tech workers. And that leads to misperception number two, that working in tech means primarily working in Silicon Valley or some of the other tech hubs around the country, whether it's New York City or Washington, D.C. And again, undoubtedly important tech hubs, a lot of important companies are based there, a lot of venture capital that helps fund startups. But again, it represents a somewhat small share of overall tech employment. In our State of the Tech Workforce report published earlier this year, we reported that 48 states saw positive tech employment growth last year, meaning that they added workers. And if you look at the most recent monthly reporting, the wide range of metro areas, both large and also somewhat mid-sized or smaller metro areas that are increasing their tech employment. So there's employers there that are seeking tech talent across a range of positions. And then misperception number three. Working in tech means primarily working in software development or coding. And I think this is probably this perception has fallen back a little bit, but it wasn't too long ago where there was so much attention on coding. At the school level, employers, like everyone was so focused on you have to learn coding, at the exclusion of many other technology skills. And coding is a big category. When you add in web development, software testers, and some of the other positions around software development, it's a little bit under 40% of the total. But that means 60% of tech jobs are in other categories across infrastructure, tech support, cloud, data, cybersecurity, IT project management. So there's such a wide range of positions. And the important point to remember is that so many tech skills are interrelated. So even if you do work in coding, you also have to have a foundation in data and cybersecurity. Conversely, if you are a network engineer, you also have to have project management skills. You have to know a little bit of code to, say, work with APIs. So it is important that employers as well as job seekers keep this in mind. And then misperception number four, that the barriers to entering tech are high, meaning that you have to have a four-year degree, a master's degree, or even a PhD. And again, there are certainly high-level positions where you may need advanced education, advanced degrees. But according to our latest reporting, 46% of tech job postings did not specify a four-year degree. So almost half of all positions, employers are casting a wide net and they're opening it up to candidates of all backgrounds. And then in some occupations, it's even much higher. In network support, in tech support, it's above 70% of all job postings did not specify a four-year degree. With that being said, employers obviously expect the required skills and competency to perform the job. And that's where certifications come in and why it's so critical in a skills-based hiring model to have a means to validate skills and expertise. So those are four misperceptions that job seekers should keep in mind when they're searching, when they're considering where to potentially work, but also for employers, that there could be untapped talent around the country or even within their own company that they could take advantage of.
Continuing with the thread of misperceptions, are there any misperceptions around career options once someone starts to work in tech?
I'm glad you asked that question, Andrea, because that is something that comes up quite often, especially with some of the younger generations, whether they're still in school or they're just starting out. It's that perception that once you start and you pick one career, you're stuck in it for the rest of your life. And in tech, there is so much flexibility and there are so many opportunities when you think about all of the different career pathways. But you have to keep in mind that, like any career path, there are stepping stones. It's usually the exception where someone is starting in a high-level role. Typically, you have to build a foundation of skills and experience before moving on. And this is just one excerpt of a career pathway image from CompTIA's Career Explorer site. And it provides a starting point of tech support. And again, it's a great career, but there may be some thinking that I don't really want to do tech support or help desk for the rest of my life. But tech support has some of the most valuable transferable skills because you are developing expertise around customer service, around security, around networks, around troubleshooting, around recognizing problems and creatively solving them. And tech support is often a starting point for working in networking, working in various types of data roles, working in project management, and even software development. There are lots of examples we see among CompTIA certification holders that make the jump into some type of software position. So this is just a very quick overview to expose you to one of the misperceptions that sometimes comes up. And this goes for employers as well. As I just mentioned, there could be untapped tech talent, someone sitting in a role and they just need a little bit of a boost with additional training, additional certification to potentially move onto a higher level career pathway. And maybe it fills a difficult need such as cybersecurity. So a lot to take away from this type of career pathway chart. And also, hopefully it exposes you to just some of the additional opportunities that may be overlooked in tech.
Thank you, Tim. This is a good place to wrap up this month's report. Thank you so much for sharing your insight.
Great. Thank you, Andrea.
And viewers, thank you for tuning in. We will be back here for another CompTIA Tech Jobs Report next month.